Hello and welcome to Gavi Immer Gaming. This is Grant and I'm back with another Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report. Today we've got 1600 points of my Dark Elves versus an all-Khorne Warriors of Chaos list. And we're playing Battle for the Pass, so just to take you through the Chaos Warriors of Chaos list, we've got from left to right a Khorne Chariot, followed by a unit of 16 Chaos Warriors, and then a unit of 8 Chaos Ogres, all with the Mark of Khorne. And continuing on, we've got 8 Khorne Knights with full command, and then his Demon Prince, also with the Mark of Khorne. He's got the Sword of Striking, a Charm Shield, a Scaled Skin for a 5-up armor save, and the Collar of Khorne, which gives him Magic Resistance 3, and also Soul Feeder. So in the end, he's got a 1-up armor save, a 5-up ward with Magic Resistance 3. And here's just a look at his whole army. And then just to take you through terrain, we've just got 2 pieces of magical terrain here. The building on the far left by that large die is the dwarf brewhouse, and then the little idol there in the middle is the sorceress portal. And then to take you through my Dark Elf army, from left to right, we've got a unit of 30 witches with full command, 27 executioners beside them. In there is my general. He's a Dreadlord. He's got a 2-up rerollable armor save and the giant blade for +3 strength, and there's also 5 shades in front of them already scouted, and hidden in there is an assassin. Beside the shades there are 5 Doomfire Warlocks, and then back behind them we have a master with a lance on a Dark Pegasus. He's got the Cloak of Twilight, and then at the back of the table is the Reaper Bolt Thrower. And here's just a shot of my whole army. So he actually won the roll to go first, but he chose to give me first turn, so I took advantage by moving my master up behind the brew house there. Put him there because then he's protected, he can't be charged, but he does have some line of sight along the side of the brew house, so he will be able to fly over that and charge in his turn. And that's important because then I can get the +2 strength from the lance. I then move my shades up in front of the Doomfire Warlocks to put them in a better position to charge if I want to in the next turn, but still stayed back far enough that would make the charge from both his warriors or the chariot difficult to make. And then here on the right hand side of the table, I just inched my executioners and witches back a little bit so they were further away from the sorcerer's portal than his units. Although the sorcerer's portal can be good or bad depending on how you roll, most of the good benefits really only take effect in close combat by adding weapon skill or adding strength and toughness. So I thought I would hold back and hopefully the portal can do some damage to his units. In Magic, I failed to cast Doombolt, but I did shoot my Bolt Thrower at his chariot. I hit, but rolled a 1 to wound. So we go on to Warriors turn 1, and this is where he started to make a mistake, and I think this was one of the mistakes that he made throughout the game, and it really did hurt him. So he chose not to try to restrain from having to charge with his frenzied units, and decided to try to make the charges instead. In this turn, I think he needed an 11 from his chariot to reach the shades. He failed and only moved ahead 2 or 3 inches. I did stand and shoot and got 1 wound through. And over here he moved his Demon Prince, flew him up behind the forest, out of the forward arc of the witches, and shuffled his knights up just a little bit. So here we have a shot of the full board after turn 1. And in my turn 2, I charged the Dark Elf on Pegasus, the Master, up over the building and into the chariot. I was really expecting to do the last 3 wounds with my lance charge doing D3 wounds each, and hoping to overrun out of the forward arc of the warriors that are there at the top of the table there. And then I moved my executioners up a little bit, being careful to keep them a little bit further away from the portal than the ogres there at the top left-hand side of the screen. I also turned my witches to face the Demon Prince. And then in Magic, the Sorcerer's Portal decided to cast Soul Blight and hit the ogres with -1 strength, -1 toughness. And then my Warlocks also cast Soul Blight on the ogres for further -1 strength, -1 toughness, which opened the ogres up to some nice juicy shots from the shades, and I was able to get 4 wounds through, killing one of the ogres. And then my Bolt Thrower took aim at the Demon Prince, but missed. And in close combat, I wasn't able to do the last 3 wounds on the chariot. I only caused 1 wound, which went up to 2 with the D3 from the Cloak of Twilight, leaving the chariot on 1. And so then the Master got flanked by the warriors. And again, the Warriors of Chaos player, I think, made another mistake here, trying to make a long charge. I think he needed a 10 or an 11 with the ogres to make it into the shades. He chose not to try to restrain, just went for the charge, and of course failed, and again only moved up a couple of inches. And then the Knights chose to try to make a charge on the Executioners, and I think they needed a 12 in this case and failed. And you can see just how little both units moved up with their failed charges instead of just going ahead and marching their full distance and trying to get into close combat. The warrior player has no magic and no shooting in this army, so I think he really needs to try to get into close combat as fast as possible. So all of these failed charges where he's choosing not to try to restrain and just trying to roll really big, they're really going to hurt him. Gives me the opportunity to shoot and magic him and really whittle him down before we get into close combat. So I think he would have been better off to restrain, make his full march move, and then be sure he could get into close combat in turn 2. And then on the right hand side of the table, his Demon Prince flies up behind the Witch Elves. And here we've got a nice view of the full table after movement. In close combat, the champion from the Warriors unit had to issue a challenge, and I had to accept with my Master. No wounds went through, and I was able to hold despite the static combat resolution. So we go on to Dark Elves turn 3, and the Executioners charged into the Ogres. I don't really have a movement of Dark Elf turn 3 movement, but I also move my Warlocks right up to next to the Sorcerer's Portal there in the middle of the table, which was really there to protect the flank of my Executioners in case they were not able to wipe out and overrun through the Ogres and out of the charge arc of the Knights. So I realize at this point I'm probably going to lose those Warlocks if I can't flee and I need to protect the Executioners, but that's okay. And that Executioner unit is my general and worth lots more points, so I'm willing to sacrifice the Warlocks in order to protect them. So here you see where the Doomfire Warlocks ended up. In Magic, I cast Doombolt irresistibly at the Knights. I was able to kill 5 Knights and only took 1 Warlock loss in the miscast, so that's fantastic. But the Knights did pass their panic test. And luckily, the Executioners with my general were able to kill the Ogre unit, and I'm able to overrun and get out of the forward arc of the Knights. So at the very top of the screen, you see where the Executioners ended up after their overrun. I actually think that might have been a pursuit, and I just caught them in my pursuit. And that's perfect because it gives me the opportunity now to flee with my Doomfire Warlocks when they get charged by the Knights. And I don't have to worry about the Knights then redirecting into the flank of my Executioner unit. So, and then finally in movement, I turn my Witches to face the Demon Prince. And then at the top left-hand part of the screen, the challenge between the champion in the Warriors unit and my Master on Dark Pegasus continued. No one was able to do any damage, but I did flee this time just from the static combat resolution. I fly off the table, and remember we're in the Battle of the Pass scenario where both table edges are counted as impassable terrain. So the Warriors pursued due to their frenzy, and they just hit the table edge and stop. The Chariot, remember, had lost frenzy in the first round of combat, so it did not have to pursue and just reformed. So here we have a shot of the board after Dark Elf turn 3. So in Warriors turn 3, exactly sort of as I predicted, the Knights charge in at the Doomfire Warlocks. I'm able to flee and I get away. And the Warriors actually were blocking any charges from the Chariot, so they both just reform to face the middle of the board. And at the bottom of the screen, after all the dancing around, finally the Demon Prince chooses just to go ahead and charge the Witches. Here's just a picture of the Warriors unit and the Chariot after their reform and getting into position to go after the Shades. And my poor opponent, at the beginning of the game, he had mentioned that he doesn't really like the magical terrain. It seems like it can skew the game at times. And so we only decided to play with 2 pieces of magical terrain, and of course that portal portal in the middle decides to have a large effect in the game, shoots a fireball at the knights and is able to get 1 wound through the armor. And since there were only 3 left at the beginning of the phase, this causes a panic test and they fail. And now that there are only 2 left, unfortunately they're sitting on double ones to have to rally. So they're going to be heading off towards the end of the edge of the table before the end of the game. And then in close combat between the Witch Elves and the Demon Prince does win, but the Witches hold with their steadfast. And here's just a shot of the left-hand side of the table after turn 3. In Dark Elf turn 4, I decide to charge my Shades at the Chariot, and it chooses to flee. I'm able to rally my Doomfire Warlocks, and in Magic, I shoot Soul Blight at the Warriors, giving them -1 Strength, -1 Toughness, and then I cast Doombolt with them as well, and I'm able to kill 6. And again, with the miscast, I only take 1 loss in return. I shoot 6 shots from the Bolt Thrower and able to kill 3 more of the Warriors, leaving them with only 7. And in this close combat, the Demon Prince only kills 3 more Witches again, and they're able to hold. This is actually the second turn in a row that the Demon Prince player rolled a 1 for his Thunderstomp. He actually rolled a 1 last time and then rolled a 1 to wound, so it did cause no damage with his Thunderstomp. This time he rolled a 1, but it was actually able to get the wound through. And here's a shot of the right-hand side of the table. You can see the 2 knights fleeing from the portal, and my Executioners hopefully trying to get around to give some support and try to get through that armor save of the Demon Prince. And here's a shot of the whole table at the start of Warriors turn 4, and you can see it maybe a little bit of a hint from what's going to happen. You can see the Warriors player measuring out some movement on that Chariot. And as you can see, what I alluded to, the Chariot continues to flee, fails to rally, but does not run off the table. And these last 2 knights fail to rally and continue to run. But finally, the Warriors do make a charge into the Shades. In close combat, I pop my Assassin, and he's able to kill 3 of the 7 Warriors. The Shades with their great weapons and the Warriors go at the same time, and they actually wipe each other out. So only the Assassin remains. And in close combat here, the Demon Prince continues to kill some Witches. He actually got 2 Thunderstomps this time, so good for him. And keep in mind, he does have a 2-up armor save, but he's taken probably 20 wounds from these Witches after all these rounds of close combat and has saved every single one of them. He does win with his Thunderstomp and the wounds he's done, but the Witches continue to hold. And here's a full shot of the left-hand side of the board. We move into Dark Elves turn 5. I have no charges, and my Bolt Thrower is able to finish off the last wound on the Chariot. And you'll have to forgive me, I think I started to fall apart here with the pictures. We were moving pretty quickly, but in Warriors turn 5, the Demon Prince continues to beat up on the Witches. They fail their steadfast check here and flee, but they do get away. And in Dark Elf turn 6, the Witches fail to rally, continue to flee. Nothing really in Magic. I shoot my Bolt Thrower at the Demon Prince, hit it, and am able to get 2 wounds through. And then lastly, Warriors turn 6, he charges his Demon Prince at my Witches. They continue to flee, of course. They flee through the Executioners, which causes them to panic, and they run right to the top of the table, which is fortunately for me just out of range for the Demon Prince, so he's unable to redirect into the Executioners and push them off the table. So there we have it. It's a big win for the Dark Elves. And just a quick summary, again, I think the failed charges from the Chaos Warriors really hurt them. It really delayed them getting into close combat. And with any Warriors of Chaos Army, if you're not in close combat early, you're probably losing. And I think choosing not to try to restrain and just march really hurt the army. In fact, the Knights never made it into combat after being hit by the Doom Bolts and the Fireball from the portal and then fleeing off the table. By the time the Warrior unit actually made it into the Shades, they were down to 7 and really had no other support. So staying back, obviously not a good idea for the Warriors Chaos player. And then my Witches, although they weren't able to get any damage on the Demon Prince, they did keep him occupied for the game. So hope you enjoyed it. It was a fun game, really enjoyed it. Look forward to playing this player again, and I'll check you on the next one.